Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, no matter where you're watching us from around the globe today. I say thank you for allowing us into your homes, most importantly, into your hearts. If you're watching us on the DBNA television network, a sincere thank you for your continued support of our show, the network sponsors, and the other outstanding talent here on the network. If you're listening to us in podcast form, me and my man sitting right next to me, Frank Jasper, say, turn that knob up and let us put that flavor in your ear. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to lace them up once again for another edition of the Coach Scott Field Show. That's right. Today, we're going to lace them up with Hollywood. That's why we're going with the shades right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I am thrilled. I'm even going to try to cue a little music here just for nostalgia. I'm going to take you back through a time machine. The year 1985. The year was 1985, and my guest was Brian Shute in the movie Vision Quest. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that music, Frank. Oh, that's some lunatic fringe right there. Woo! Frank, you got to let that pump you up.
This is rocking stuff, man. Love it.
Dude, that is setting the tone for this edition of the Coach Scott Field Show. I am so excited to have my guest, Frank Jasper. He played Brian Shute on the 1985 movie Vision Quest. As you can see, baby, boom, right there it is. We're talking the Shute. Frank Jasper, my friend, we did this a while back with a few technical difficulties, but I am thrilled to have you back on because you are more than just a Hollywood actor. You have a wealth of knowledge and experience and expertise in holistic healing, and we're going to get into that towards the end of the show. But Frank, welcome to the Coach Scott Field Show again. I love the shirt that you're rocking. Thank you for my shirt. We are representing Brian Shute, baby.
So I guess we're going to have to call this VQ rebooted. Just a little bit of a Matrix thing that we have going there.
I like it. I like it. Well, again, 1985, I was a junior in high school. And when I think back to how your movie inspired me, because it was like the villain versus, this guy who had this quest to, overcome his fears and his obstacles. And he wanted to take on, the reigning state champion, Brian Shute, who you played. And phenomenal movie. I mean, come on, Madonna is in it singing Crazy for You. You had Journey on the soundtrack. You just heard Lunatic Fringe by Red Rider. Man, so many things about this Spokane movie were just on fire, and I was truly inspired by your work.
I mean, and the cast, the crew, everybody, the lighting, the guy was doing the lighting is such a key part of that. And we got Matthew Modine, you got Linda Fiorentino, you've got Forrest Whitaker had a small role, Ronnie Cox, he's just such a solid, he's just seamless. He walks through those scenes and you just know that he's the father of Matthew Modine. And Daphne Zeneniga and I'm just totally destroyed her name. Ralph Savage, all those guys went on to do great things. And it was a great project. I love being a part of it. It has continued to inspire and uplift, which to me, that's what it's all about. We want to inspire and uplift. We want to take people to the next level. And if this would help you become the better version of yourself on and off the mat, that's what it's all about. So I am proud to be a part of it.
And Frank, it did. I mean, just the storyline, and of course, the little bit of a love story with Linda, but she plays the actress Carla. But man, it's just a great show. The part that you play, I mean, you are this guy that is just an amazing figure, kind of like in Rocky. Rocky always had Clubber Lang that he was going against, or he had Ivan Drago from Russia that he's going against. You were that villain. You were this mountain of a man that he had to overcome to try to, you know, take Thompson High to the next level. And let's go into that. Frank, what was it like going through the whole casting call, and how did you get involved in the movie Vision Quest?
Well, I was just attending Eastern Washington University. I was an athletic trainer for the Eastern Washington University at the time, so I was in the athletic training program, and each semester you work with a different team. That particular semester, I was working with the wrestling team, and one of the guys that was in the movie already cast as an extra came in. He was a wrestler on the team, but decided not to wrestle that year so he could do this movie. Well, he was just watching, and I was reading my textbook, and he's talking about this movie he's in, and next thing he says is, you know, they're still looking for somebody 6 foot tall, muscular build that can wrestle. And he goes, hey, that's you. And I'm like, nah, I'm not interested. And then he just kept talking. He says, you know, they just pay you great. You get to just, you know, get paid for wrestling. And I'm thinking, well, okay, let me think. I'm paying for my education. If I can go be an extra in a movie, watch the movie get made, get some of my, you know, tuition paid for, okay, I'll go do it. So I ended up showing up at the casting director's office, walking in, and she hands me some sides, which are, you know, the dialogue. And I thought, he never told me this. If he told me this, I'm out of here. But I was there, and so I read with her. I got nervous. I laughed, you know, because I made a mistake. I'd never done this before. So she stops. She looks at me dead in the eyes, and she says, we're looking for intensity here. If you make a mistake, you just continue on as if nothing happened. Got it? And I was like, okay. So we read the scene another time, and she goes, calls Harold Becker, and she goes, okay, he wants to see you. So we walk around. We're at the hotel where they filmed some of the movie, and that's where their offices were. So we walk around to his office. I walk in there. He looks at me. He goes, takes the sides out of my hands. He goes, you know the lines now. I've read them like 2 or 3 times max. And somehow I did. I don't know where it came from. Not that they're like super long monologues, you know, but it's a lot to try and comprehend and do, and you've never done it before. So we ran through the lines. I got through it. I was surprised. I didn't even know how I did it. It's kind of a blur. Then he says, oh, well, you got to go out and see if you can wrestle. So Cash Stone is who's the referee in the final scene. He oversees everything, and he wants to make sure everybody can, you know, wrestle and do their thing. And he was running all the practices. So I had to go wrestle for him. And I hadn't wrestled in probably 3 years. But I did wrestle at Pasco College for that entire wrestling season before I went to Eastern Washington, because a friend there didn't have somebody his weight to wrestle with. So I got to wrestle with the team. So I had a little bit still in the back of my brain. Anyway, it turned out okay. He said, you got it. You can do this. And he was happy with what he saw on the mat. And then I had another audition. And then the final audition came down to me reading the lines, because they were for the producers, John Peters and Peter Goober. And Nancy Klopper flew down from LA. And what I found out was they brought somebody they really liked. They found somebody. Now, listen, this role had been cast twice before. Neither one of those guys worked out. They were 2.5 weeks away from shooting. So that it was like crunch time, baby. It's got to happen now. And so they flew this guy down. The director liked me. The producers liked this guy they brought down. And so I go in to read, and they introduced me. And well, actually, before I even walked into the office, Harold meets me out in a hallway, right? So he walks up to me and he goes, when you come in here, I want you to be intense the whole time, no matter what happens. Got it? And he goes, smack. And he actually smacked me in the side of the face. And I just gritted my teeth. I turned around and I go, got it. He goes, that's what we want. So I come back into the office. I do the scene, and they asked me to take my shirt off. So I'm standing there doing the scene, being really, you know, aggressive, and the woman from the casting director from LA was reading the scenes to me. So I'm reading with this woman. So it's kind of, you know, I'm having to deal with like, oh, I'm having to be aggressive with this lady. And then she's just sitting there making faces like, oh God, this guy's terrible concept, right? So I walked out of that audition. Casting director, the local one that I talked with, said, I said to her, like, well, what happened? I said, "What, did I look ridiculous?" And she goes, "No, why?" She goes, "Oh, well, um, she was making those faces because she was trying to throw you off. Because if you would have made a mistake there, then it would have made her guy look good, because she had cast this twice before. It didn't work out. She wanted this other guy." So I went, "Oh, so that's how you play this game, man." I was like, they want who they want, doesn't matter. Anyway, fast forward, they say, okay, he hasn't been cleared yet, the guy that they brought, to see if he could wrestle. So we had to all go over to the set, and they had a mat there, they had a light there, and they were shooting some scenes off some other place, and they had to break. And then they all came and they all stood around the mat. And this guy named Frank Zagarino and I got on the mat, and the coach, Coach Stoney would say, "Okay, single leg." Now I do a single leg. Then he would do a single, double leg, then double leg, duck under, arm drag, this thing. And we always went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then he says, "Stop." And he goes, "Okay, yeah, this kid from LA can wrestle." So it was up to them to make the decision. And we waited about 5-10 minutes. And then John Peters comes over and he goes, "Okay, you got the role."
Wow.
Yeah. So,
That
and that
that's
was like the beginning. And I
yeah.
still had no idea what I was getting myself into. I really
Wow.
did.
Well, and listening to your story there, you mentioned Coach Cash Stone. Talk about Coach Stone and his impact on the wrestling community in that Spokane area, because I mean he's a legend.
Yeah. I want to say he's just a little over 5 foot tall. And he usually wears like a Marine buzz cut flat top, and the nicest guy you'll ever meet, but he will do whatever it takes to get the job done. And you want to perform for this guy. Now, he was around 50, 52 when this was going on. And I would show up to practice and he was like, "Yeah, he just got back for a 2 mile run with the kids." Everybody that was in the thing, right? The kids. And then he
Wow,
does a little handstand there against the bleachers and starts doing handstand push-ups.
man, at 50, wow.
But the most impressive thing about Cash Stone is that he's just got a real positive mentality, like Coach. You know how to motivate people. He's just a good person. Matter of fact, they wanted him. They asked him if he wanted to be the coach for Loudon Swain, and he's a principled guy, and he says no, because I don't cuss, and
Uh,
because he had to say the F word,
yeah.
you know, and he says, "I don't cuss, so that's not. You give it to somebody else."
Wow, how
That's
about
the kind of
that?
person we're dealing with here. Just a super
Wow.
individual.
Yeah, and like I'm saying, just a legendary icon. And because when you think of Spokane, you think of the Zags and the basketball there that's been so good, for the last few decades with Coach Mark Few. But yet Cash Stone, man, that name carries weight. And like you said, he plays a role where he's the official,
Yep.
where he's giving giving the old tap there for the pin. But man, Forrest Whitaker is in this, the guy who plays Cooch, with the
Right.
mohawk. I mean, like you say,
Michael Schofling.
an amazing cast.
Yeah.
And now, did you get to interact with Matthew much other than just the wrestling scenes, or how does that all play out?
Well, I don't know if it was by design, but I was really kind of separated. It was a little bit like the character. You just kept hearing about him. He was like, "Oh, he's a beast. He's a monster. He's a genuine territoid. He's never been beat this year. He's on full strength." All those things were coming, and then you finally see him in the stadium scene carrying this massive log up these stairs, and it's impactful. It's like such a great scene. There it is, baby.
The
And
scene.
it's
Yes,
just,
sir.
and it was such that is iconic, so that's why I put it on the shirts. It has such great impact or meaning to so many people. They look at that as like, oh, so Shute really wasn't like a bad guy. He wasn't like a villain as much as, like other films. He was just like Mr. Wrestle.
Yeah.
He was just dedicated, and he's out there by himself. He's out there lifting this log, carrying up. That's his challenge right there. Life's challenges are right there on his shoulders. Is he going to overcome? Is he going to be able to use that to take him to the next level? So there you go.
So tell us about that. Where was this scene shot? Of course, you're carrying the log. And I had heard stories that it was real cold, but they wanted to make you look like you were sweating. So kind of get into how they did that to make it look like you were perspiring on a cold, cold day, carrying that log up the stadium stairs. Because if we set the scene, Loudon, Swain, and Cooch go walking into the stadium because they know you're working out, they know you're preparing, and then here you come with the log, just boom, 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 and just your physique. I mean, you're in phenomenal shape at this time. So kind of set that scene up for us.
Well, and you just mentioned a little piece there, and I've shared this before, is that I was a bodybuilder and I was about 215 pounds.
Wow.
And they said, listen, we would like you to drop some weight so you're closer to where Matthew was. And I just went absolute all in. And I went from 215 down to 189, which is basically about 25 pounds in 2.5 weeks. And
Man.
so I was just shredded. I was at a 4% body fat. We actually did this water plunge so that I could check my body fat, in the Human Performance Lab at Eastern Washington. And I was at 4%, which is unhealthy. As you know, you want to be above 7%. But that was where I was at for this movie. Now, the scene was at Joe Albi Stadium. And so it's an iconic stadium there in Spokane area. And it was a kind of a fall day, and it gets cold there. And even though the sun is out, everybody in the cast was wearing parkas and hoods and stocking hats
See your
and gloves.
breath.
And so yes, I'm wearing a tank top and shorts and carrying this up and down. And so they had to actually spray glycerin to make it look like I was actually sweating.
Wow.
But that scene, I just love that scene. It's just a fun scene. There's little clips of it that you can actually go on YouTube and you can just watch that one scene if you want. But it just gives me chills every time I see it.
Oh, and I'm telling you, and I think you look up to Loudon and you're like, think you'll make weight? I don't know verbatim the line, but it's something to that effect. And it's like, yeah, you hope he makes weight, because in that way, you're going to be seeing him.
Exactly.
Oh, great, great. See, how much, and again, I mean, here you are, 4% body fat. I mean, you're just chiseled. Your legs, you got the little shorty shorts on like a John Stockton from Gonzaga out here with the Utah Jazz. But how much did that log actually weigh that you're just pounding up those stadium stairs?
Well, they had adjusted it somehow, so it wasn't as super heavy. Like, it would have probably been close to 200 pounds if it was a real, solid log, but it was closer to just a little under 100 pounds. The hardest thing is that you're reaching back behind you trying to carry this log. It's
Yeah.
off, but the effects it just looks amazing to me. It was so much fun to do that and to have that on tape. It's just, you just never know what's going to pop. And that was just one of those scenes that just popped.
Yeah, well, and you think about it, you think of the details. You got the socks pulled up to around your calves, and the shorts, but yet you're so ripped and your muscles are so striated. I mean, every time you just take a step and pound up those stadium stairs, I mean, you just see the muscles bulging, and like you say, your shoulders are just huge. And man, Frank, to think that 215 pounds and a bodybuilder and losing that weight, for this scene, it's just phenomenal to think about, because it's an iconic scene in the sports entertainment industry.
So, I talk about this because it was something I had to do. Now, if I was going to wrestle and I needed to lose that weight, you could do that.
Ooh,
I don't
yeah.
advocate it for everyone. I don't
Yeah.
like when people yo-yo up and down. This is one of the things that I'm focused on now. Is I do a nutritional podcast once a week, and I share nutritional advice. I want these kids, I want the coaches, I want the parents, I want them all to have this knowledge so they can work with it. So you don't want to starve. These are the worst time in their lives to try and starve them, dehydrate them, overtrain them. You can stunt their growth. You can disrupt their microbiome. You can disrupt their growth process. They might not fuse until they're even into college area. I mean, we, as athletic trainer at Eastern Washington, we were looking at the epiphyseal line on the bones of some of the college athletes weren't sealed yet. And that means they're still growing. So you don't want to stunt that at that age, and you don't want to dysregulate or disrupt their endocrine system or their microbiome. So there's ways to do this correctly, and you can do it. And I talk about that, and it's you just have to plan for it. You have to be smart about what you eat. It's a simple, well, I shouldn't say it's simple, so simple, but to me it is, because I've done it and talked about it so often. To me, it's just, here's your basic: get rid of the pro-inflammatory foods, cut back on your sugars, get your sleep, hydrate, work out, do sprint 8, do saunas if you need to, do intermittent fasting, and then train at the end of that. There's all these techniques you can use that actually help your body even improve. And so there's ways to really make your body, you can cut without losing muscle and just maintain your physique. Your body will find where it needs to be, and you're ready to go. And you're not going to be depleted when you step on the mat. It's like the most ridiculous thing that we do in wrestling, is my opinion.
Yeah, and see, I love that you're kind of delving into that, because again, you're more than just a pretty face and an actor. I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge and expertise to help educate and bring awareness to parents and to student athletes who are putting so much stress and rigors on their body mentally and physically, to how to help them take them through that process and progress to do it in a healthy ways. Because I can remember watching wrestlers, at my high school. I mean, they're out there, and like you say, they're starving, and they're wearing those sweatsuits, and they're out running, and they're, trying to perspire to lose all that water weight, which is very damaging, to individuals. And now that, 15, 20, 30 years into the science, you now have the science and knowledge and the degrees to help individuals learn these things holistically, to take better care of their joints and their muscles and, their sugars. Because I heard you talk about hydration. I hear you talk about proper rest, because people don't understand, when you're training at an elite level, your rest and recovery is just as vital as all the other things that you're doing out there for your body.
There's been some like talk about like, oh, I only need 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Some people think they can perform well on that. It just hasn't proved out. There's like this 0.1% of people that can actually do that without having serious impacts on their performance and their mental acuity, et cetera, et cetera. What Stanford did, they did a test with their women tennis players, and they said, okay, well, let's see, because we were concerned like, oh, you can get too much sleep. Well, they said, we're going to have you guys sleep 10 hours a night for 2 weeks. And we did a pre-test and a post-test. And after 2 weeks of getting 10 hours of sleep a night, they performed better. They had better sprints. They had better choice of shots. They had better performance on the court. And so I think when you're placing that kind of demand on the body, just like you're saying, you really got to give it the time to regenerate, to heal, and to get back to, equilibrium, to detox and get ready for the next, challenge on the, that's coming at them. So maybe 10 hours is good. I recommend 7 to 9. If you can get 7 to 9, and if you can get it in, especially if you can get a couple hours in before midnight, that's kind of a key period, because in that 2 hour prior to midnight, that's where you'll have your biggest release of HGH. So if you want to like focus on your HGH, make sure you get to bed at least 2 hours before midnight. Give yourself your time to produce that HGH. You want to get that deep sleep, because what happens during that period, besides regenerating neurotransmitters, you're also flushing the brain of toxins. And if you're not, you're setting yourself up for possible dementia, Alzheimer's, and things of that nature, because the tau tangles and the the protein buildups that happen in the brain don't get flushed out.
Yeah, and
So
see, yeah, see, I mean,
key.
think about the levels that you're taking there, because you're talking HGH, the human growth hormone, which, the body should be able to produce with, the, gosh, the dopamine and the things when you're getting regular exercise, those endorphins that you're triggering. And if you're not having the proper rest, your brain cannot, fire those synapses to have that mental acuity and focus. And then that's where injuries are going to happen. If you lose a little bit of concentration on one of your sweeps or leg sweeps and you land wrong, well, now you're looking at a serious injury. And I
Right.
think it's important for athletes to know the difference between, pain and injury.
Yeah.
Pain can be a little bit of stress on a joint or a muscle or a strain, but an injury is actually something that's going to take time to heal. And I think too many athletes try to rush through it because of whether it's ego or whatever,
Right.
they're not allowing themselves enough time to heal. But that mental acuity to have those HGH, those human, growth hormones and the dopamine. I mean, again, we're talking chemicals, but it's scientific proof, and you have that wealth of knowledge. I mean, you even go into, I mean, you guys also discuss acupuncture and things, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about the impact that it has, that it produces enkephalins and your own morphine in your body, but it opens up energy pathways, gets your body to detoxify, supports your internal organs.
Wow.
It's just a tremendous little treatment protocol, that and some cupping, some massage, some, cranial sacral. I do fascia release technique. I combine as much as I can to help the athlete, get to the next level. And one thing I want to just mention, because you brought it up, you mentioned something about injury. And one of the biggest mistakes I see, and I think we mentioned this maybe in the last podcast, is that when they athlete comes off of whatever they're working out or training, and the first thing they're going to reach for is a recovery drink. And if you check the label on that recovery drink, high fructose corn syrup plays a big role in there. And as soon as you do that, you start to shut down your HGH production, because when insulin goes up, HGH goes down. And so people are like, oh, well, I got to get my, glycogenic debt, paid back, as quickly as possible. Now you just need a small amount. You just need a little bit of glycogen. You really need more electrolytes than ever. You need the amino acids. You need those things to heal, to help your body regenerate, and you need the electrolytes to really fire things and to be able to absorb nutrients, etc. So when I see a lot of professional athletes that are so well trained and they're getting injured constantly, then you have to ask yourself, what are they doing wrong? Because you look at them and they're like high performance vehicles. Their bodies are designed, like, you just look at them and go, oh, geez, these guys are just stacked, but they get injured. Dwight Howard was one of those guys from the NBA,
Yeah.
where he was in New York and he went to New LA, and he was always injured. And that was back even when Kobe Bryant was there. And you know how Kobe is, he plays through injuries, period. I don't care. He's going to play. He's a player. And he was upset with, Dwight Howard, and saying, dude, we're all injured. We all play. You got to step up. And he just couldn't. And that they did blood work on him. And they found he was pre-diabetic. He was
Wow.
consuming the close to the equivalency of 32 Snickers bars a day. So if you
Wow.
think about what I just said, like, okay, your sugar is going to depress your HGH. It also sets you up, because any excess sugar in your body will then look for receptor sites. And the receptor sites that it's looking for are protein receptor sites. That's its favorite. So it'll lock onto those, and it creates a rigid bond. Now, protein is in your muscles. Basically, that's all your muscular system as protein. And so when you get these rigid bonds in your muscles, now these muscles are rigid, and you put a demand on them and they don't stretch and come back, they just tear. And so he was completely inflamed the whole time, and he had all these rigid bonds in his muscle. He couldn't perform. Just think of that. If you were just locked up everywhere, how are you going to jump and extend and shoot and do all those things as demanding? So one of the biggest mistakes I see is that, as soon as somebody gets done with their workout, they hit this, high fructose corn syrup with high, a lot of color and a bunch of other chemicals. And it's like, that's the worst thing you can do at that point.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're talking about that because, we talk about, high performance athlete, the elite level athlete, those one percenters, and they don't have a wealth of knowledge. Now, you can surround yourself with a great support system of, strength and conditioning coaches, your dietary, your nutritionist. But again, that rest and recovery. And, I also want you to kind of dive into, the importance of hydration. Talk about the importance of hydration, because now you talked about, the high fructose and the sugars, how that actually causes everything to stop and slow down, and it's working against your body's recovery. But talk about the importance of just hydration for athletes.
So as soon as you start to dehydrate the body on any level, and that's what you do, even if you do a workout, you're dehydrated. And you can make it work to your advantage, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But once you're dehydrated, now you're in trouble as far as performance level. Your endurance is the first thing that goes as soon as you're dehydrated. So it's like the worst thing you can do as an athlete is like get dehydrated. 90% of the people that come in with issues sometimes can just be resolved by like, you're not hydrating enough. When I talk to people, they just don't drink enough. Now, some people gulp the water. I prefer that they sip it. I prefer that you have really good clean water, filtered water that is going to serve you well, to the point where I actually have a machine that is Life Ionizer's water machine that I use personally. And so it will filter out all the chemicals in the water. It'll get rid of the heavy metals, the arsenic, the lead, and things like that. Gets rid of the fluoride. And then it filters out 2 more filters internally, and then it goes across titanium plates that activate on another electrolyte, another electron onto the hydrogen hydrogen onto the water molecule. And so now you're looking at a water molecule that's what's called structured, and the structured water will actually be able to hydrate on a cellular level. A lot of times we get these bottled waters. How long have they sat? And it's like in trucks or in bottles and everything, and plastic, and
In
what kind of
plastics,
plastic
yeah.
are you dealing with? So the only way I truly know I'm getting quality water at the quality I want, when I get it structured, that then can go on an intracellular level. It doesn't just wash things out of your system. So now you're hydrating on a deeper level. And so there's different states of water. There's ice, there's water, there's steam, and there's structured water. So there's 4 states of water to be aware of. And so I recommend people be very smart about how they hydrate. What are we, over 70, 80% water? Well, what do you think? Do you think that's important? You better believe it's important, because it carries, not only that, it also carries information into the body. And the body uses that in various ways to detoxify, to nourish, and to take care of the body as well. So people get headaches just because they're not hydrated enough. It's a simple thing to do on a daily basis. I talk to most people and they're like, yeah, I drink a cup of coffee. And I'm like, that doesn't count. I'm not going to count that because there's some counters in that coffee. It's a little acidic, so it's going to dehydrate you a little more. It's a little bit more caffeine. It's going to make you want to urinate to get rid of more water to some degree, et cetera, et cetera. So hydration, you got it, brother. You nailed it right there. It's hydration, sleep, nutrition, and then your training, how you do your training. And all of those things can make a profound difference in how you're performing.
Yeah, and the thing that I want to discuss too is, hydrate before your exercise. If you're starting to feel thirsty, okay, if you're already 2 steps beyond where you should be, because if you're already starting to feel thirsty, your body is already, in dehydration mode. So you got to drink plenty of water before you exercise, not just during the exercise. Have plenty of water in your system before you start that exerted workout, correct?
Absolutely. And I actually add certain things. I add amino acids, I add electrolytes to that. I add some green tea a little bit, just for pre-workout. And then I have an intra workout, drink that I have them take as well. Because what they found is there's that window after you train, a 30 minutes, where you want to get protein in there to, help the body regenerate, get back to healing. And if you throw some protein at it, then it takes about an hour and a half, hour and a quarter before your body even starts to absorb it. And it takes another 3-4 hours for your body to process it. So you're missing that window. So yes, I actually have the protein pre-drink that I have, different patients do, but athletes as well. And I have something they take while they're working out. It could be as simple as just having, pure spring water, and you can put some Himalayan salt, a couple pinches in there. So you're going to get your electrolytes. Now, it can't be just regular salt, because regular salt's been processed and it doesn't have the 32 minerals that have to be paired and have to be bioavailable so that your body can use this, because that's the catalyst in the body. Those electrolytes, those minerals allow you to utilize your vitamins. And what happens when you work out? You sweat. What does that taste like? It doesn't taste sweet. That tastes salty because that's the electrolytes that your body is using for that process.
Yeah.
So that is even more important to replace that.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because I've seen athletes, when the workout is over, they'll just go grab a little thing of chocolate milk. And I see a lot of kids doing that. Do you encourage that? Because I mean, I'm sure it's better than nothing, but what's the best recovery drink that, that would cover a large spectrum of athletes?
Yeah. Um,
And I'm sure each individual case is different.
They've done some studies, and they found that, chocolate milk can be helpful in that recovery process. I like actually having a little bit of protein, have your amino acids, have your electrolytes, and a little bit of green tea in a drink while you're training. Yeah. Because you can't wait till afterwards to try and take something in. And if it's whey protein, it takes a while for it to break down. And of course, you got milk, and you've got that gluten as a part of the milk molecule that can be hard to digest. So I'm not a big fan. I like cacao better.
Yeah, like lactose intolerance as well.
I like a cacao with some different things in it that's more pure, that's going to give you the antioxidants, but not give you the high sugar.
Yeah.
And so again, anytime that, see, as soon as you've got rid of that, the glycogen debt, then that extra sugar, the one that it doesn't then lock to those receptor sites, then just gets stored as fat. So you disservice in two areas. It's like you set yourself up for injury with the rigid bond, and you also are putting fat on the body you don't need. Yeah. So if you take amino acids, you have the ability, and you have healthy fats. Like I'll do bulletproof coffee before I train. That's an ergogenic aid, because you got the caffeine, you've got the healthy fats right there, and caffeine will activate and metabolize fat for use and for energy. And especially if you wait and you do like intermittent fast. So intermittent fast is going to be just you wait for 14 to 18 hours after your last meal. And if you then train, or you do a little bulletproof coffee, and then you train right before you go back, to break that fast, now you've even pushed the body harder, and you've lost all that sugar that you've depleted. So there's no, your sugar's gone. Your glycogen levels are depleted. And so now the demand is especially on your body to come up with energy, and it will use fat for energy. The beautiful thing about fat is that it doesn't spike and crash. The byproducts are they're not toxic like with glycogen, the sugar. There's a spike and a crash, and the byproducts are toxic, so your body has to process it. And you have a much bigger supply, about 30 to 40,000 calories, even at the end of a fast, to draw from in your body. So you want to train your body. It takes a while. It's like anything else, like a muscle. You have to train it. There's two pathways you have to keep active, which is the glycogenic pathway and the ketogenic pathway. You want both of those to work for you when you need them.
Great stuff. And, I'm thinking about all these things that you're talking about, and, the importance of those amino acids, which is the protein building block. Mm-hmm. I don't think that gets discussed enough. Kind of talk about the importance of the amino acids with your hydration.
So what they found with the study I just mentioned a while back was that if you wait until afterwards to try and throw some whey protein, or have some eggs are one of the great sources of protein. If it's a whole egg, it takes a while for the body to break it down and absorb it. Well, if you're taking straight amino acids, but I want to make sure that you're not taking BCA, branch chain amino acids. I want you to take essential amino acids, okay? Because essential amino acids have those amino acids your body absolutely needs. They're essential. Got it? It's simple. So you take those, and then so you'll keep your prevent the the catabolic effect when you're training, and so that those tears will be supported and be fed in nutrients to rebuild and grow right during the time that they're being challenged. And so if you're taking amino acids prior and you're taking them along with your workout, it's right there waiting for you. And you don't have, your body's not waiting. It's not going to go into a debt. It's like, oh, I need this, I need this, I need some aminos. We're going to support the tissue breakdown, regeneration. You got it.
Wow. I mean, what insight right there, for our viewers and our listeners. And I'm telling you, Frank, I can't thank you enough because I feel like, this content that you're sharing and this knowledge that you're sharing is the awareness that, athletes need to hear to take care of themselves. Because if they're expecting so much of their body, they've got to replenish what they're using and what they're not getting. And, you talked earlier and just kind of circling back, I coached in China for 3 years,
Uh-huh.
and some of the medicines over there were phenomenal. I turned an ankle one time and it just ballooned up, and they went with the acupuncture. And I'm going to tell you what, with that acupuncture, they even put some stimulus at the end of the needles. I mean, my recovery time had to be probably 70 to 80% quicker than anything that I've ever done over here in the
Yeah.
States. Just
Yeah.
that mindset. But I don't think enough Americans have an open mind to some of these other types of medical practice that you don't have here in the States. But man, when they did those electrodes and that acupuncture on my ankle when I severely sprained it, I'm telling you, Frank, I recovered so quickly from that.
Yeah. Yeah. They've had thousands and thousands of years. They're big into martial arts, and they're big into acupuncture and herbal treatment and plasters. And so they have this down because they've
Yes.
been doing martial arts for so long. They know how to, if the body gets injured, they know how to reset it. They know how to heal it. They know how to get the blood flow in there quickly. They look at
Yeah, it
us.
was. I mean, I think I think the fact that it brought more circulation to the area, that I didn't have to do manually, or to disrupt tissues.
Right.
I feel like, man, that circulation that my body was doing naturally because of the acupuncture is what expedited that healing process. Now, it's hard to explain that to somebody that doesn't get it or hasn't experienced it, but I'm
Yeah.
telling you, Frank, it worked. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think in 3 days, I mean, the discoloration was gone, the swelling went down, my body absorbed it, I was able to pass it. I mean, it was phenomenal.
Yeah. My first experience was with any awareness of acupuncture was when I was in fourth grade. And it was when a contingency went from the United States in 1972 over to
Wow.
China. I think Nixon was president about that time. And they came back and they wrote an article for Time magazine. And I read that article, and I actually was so fascinated with acupuncture that I tore that out. I was fourth grade, tore it out, folded it up, put it in my nightstand, because they talked about they were using it for anesthesia. They had patients that were wide awake during surgery completely. They just had blocked it with the acupuncture, which I think is just wild and phenomenal. They have certain things that we had no idea that you could do with acupuncture. And I have been working with acupuncture over 25 years now. And every now and then I just get completely surprised, like, how did that happen? This stuff is amazing. And there is, being more scientific information is coming out that shares, like, oh, well, this is why it's working. Because at the beginning, they were like, they didn't know how it worked, so they just kind of poo-pooed it. But
Yeah.
now they have more advanced technology to analyze it, to follow the flow on the energy pathways. And Western medicine is probably one of the few medical, programs around the world that doesn't include an energetic basis. You look
Wow.
at Ayurvedic, you look at the Japanese, the Chinese, Filipinos,
Right.
Peru. Even the
Right.
Peru, they call them rivers of light, because they're ascended masters, or they're masters. Their shamans could sit in meditation and see those energy pathways going through their body, and they knew how to work with them.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated by it because I feel like whenever we can grow and evolve and help our bodies recover, I'm a rheumatoid arthritis survivor. I don't say a sufferer, I'm a survivor, but I got to take care of myself. And of
Mhm.
course, my diet and nutrition is important. The rest and recovery is important.
Yeah,
Knowing what my body is needing and listening to my body. I mean, even the whole reflexology and pressure points. I think there's something to that as well.
sure. There's over 70,000 nerve endings and afferent nerve endings in the bottom of your feet. That means they take information from the bottom of your feet to all the rest of your body. So there is what's called a micro system. So you can look at the bottoms of your feet and you can pick out a place on that, like, oh, well, that's your lung, that's your heart, that's your low back. And if we massage that, we're sending a signal there to send energy there. Oh yeah, look at Scott.
Hey, this is unrehearsed, but this is my
That's
reflexology
beautiful.
slipper that it covers all the pressure points. And I'm gonna tell you something. Even if it's just mental, I believe in it, so it's going to work. So, hey, I do. I think there's something about it. But you talking about all those pressure points and nerve endings, and I'm gonna tell you what, there's something truly to that. I mean, and you have degrees in this, correct?
Yeah, I have a licensed acupuncture for the state of California. I'm also licensed nationally as well.
Wow.
So I love the healing modalities that are out there, and they're just evolving faster and faster. And the whole idea is that we want to find a way to heal the body without having to cut it open and stitch it up and leave, take things out. And I mean, it's like if you can get ahead of that curve, you can treat it, you can support it, you can give it the right nutrients, you can open the pathways energetically and heal, avoiding surgery at all costs. Hey, last resort, nothing works, fine.
Yep. Yep, I see, and
Go there.
I'm with you. I mean, and you think about Native Americans. I mean, they took things from the earth, all the herbs and things, and they had such longevity. And now we have, and I know the pharmaceutical companies aren't going to be happy with me saying this, but we have all the synthetic things that we're taking orally, and that that's not allowing our bodies to produce it naturally. So the whole holistic, healing and thing, I understand, I get it, and I'm open minded to that because when you're in pain, you want to try to do whatever you can to get yourself
Yeah.
out of that pain. And, pain is your body's, signal to you to say, hey, something's not quite right here. How can we fix it?
Yeah. I think it's been estimated to be about 85% of almost all diseases can be treated and prevented by just those things we've been talking about. So you're not going to be an athlete. You still want to be able to perform in life. And that is the diet,
Quality
the
of life.
nutrition, the exercise. And then, stress plays a big role. So
Oh,
I actually give people what's called the adrenal pose to reset their adrenals. And it's a practice because we deplete our adrenals all the time. And if you're an athlete, you're putting a demand on the adrenals because as soon as you go out there and you're on a high level of performance, there's some anxiety and there's some real, you've got to perform. Your adrenals are going to hit, they're going to release epinephrine, so that's adrenaline. So you can perform at higher levels, but you want to be able to control that as well, because if you overdo that pathway too much, then anytime you have any kind of a challenge, your body just goes into sympathetic dominance, which is fight or flight, and never comes out. And you deplete what we call the buffering system. So you have to reset that. And you have to, nutritionally, you have to give the body that ash minerals or the minerals, which is electrolytes, again, electrolyte piece there. But I also help the body reset so it doesn't jump into sympathetic dominance at every little stressor. So that's what you do. You just lay flat on your back. Your knees are at 90 degrees, and then your shins are at 90 degrees. So you're putting pillows here, and you lay flat on your back. You put your hands on your lower abdomen, and you just make this. You say, okay, this is me breathing in.
love it.
In your mind, you're saying, this is me breathing out. And you do that for 20 minutes. And that resets your adrenals, it resets your central nervous system, it kicks you out of sympathetic dominance, it puts you into what's called parasympathetic dominance. And so what you've done is like people that are under tremendous amounts of stress for long periods of time, they create this almost like this ditch where as soon as they hit one little stress, they drop right to the bottom and they're off on that whole sympathetic dominance, fight or flight, they won't come out of it. And so what you want to do
Wow.
is you want to keep doing this meditation until you're able to handle stress, and then you're able to come back out of it and get back into balance. So I tell them
Frank,
20 minutes twice a day, breathe.
wow. I'm going to tell you something. For the viewers of the Coach Scott Field Show, you have just been given a gold mine here in the last 2 minutes. And I implore you to share this content because if we can empower others, inspire others, and educate and awareness for others to help them heal and allow their bodies to perform and have a higher quality of life, my goodness, Frank, you have just unloaded a gold mine on them right there. And I can't thank you enough for this conversation. I'm always so enlightened having our conversations. I love the fact that you have taken this wealth of knowledge and you share it. And where again can people who are watching the Coach Scott Field Show or listening to the Coach Scott Field Show right now, where can they hear your podcast and where can they contact Frank for this the plethora of knowledge that you're sharing?
It's posted on Facebook, which is just going to be Frank Jasper at therealbrianshute.com. No, wait, let me try that again, because I've got Osani at Osani Health is my website. So they can reach out to me personally. Shute at shuteshirts.com if they want to know more about the shirts or any of the Vision Quest stuff. So they can get the photos, they can get the shirts. I have singlets. I go do appearances. So reach, there's this shirt. You gotta love it.
Oh, that's sexy.
You know what? I've got this guy who I love. His name is, he's out in New Jersey, and he's like, I don't know, around 6 foot tall, 270. And he wears these shirts into the bars. He says it's his favorite shirt. And he's such a great personality back there in New Jersey and just a big stud. And people just like, well, where'd you get that shirt? And so I'll get a call. He'll be drinking at a bar or having fun someplace. I get a call from him going, hey, my friend wants to buy your shirt. How do I do this? And I'll do it over the phone, because this shirt, the red just kind of pops. And when you put it on a 270-pound body that's muscular.
Man, yeah, that's a walking billboard right there. That's awesome. But again, just the wealth of knowledge and experience that you can share with parents and with athletes and with agents. I mean, let's help these athletes perform at an optimal level, but yet how to better take care of themselves so they can have longevity in their career, I think is important. And let me just say this. I mean, we've got a couple minutes here. Frank Jasper today, what would be the first thing you would tell a 20-year-old Frank Jasper?
Nutrition is really important. I had no idea about sleep. And then we've talked about how important that is. Hydration, absolutely. But it's don't overtrain and make sure you regenerate. And I was doing way too many carbs, and I blew out my whole microbiome. I mean, my digestive process was completely disrupted, and so I wasn't absorbing anything. I had no energy. So I would go back and refine my diet and just be a little bit more responsible about not trying to I was just trying to pound calories. I had trouble gaining weight. So I was like, I would eat 5 platefuls of food at every meal.
Wow.
I would start with 6 eggs in the morning, 5 or 6 pancakes and a handful of, bacon, just to get some calories in. I would do the same thing at lunch. At dinner, I would just either put a plate of spaghetti, I would do a plate of spaghetti, and then I do a plate of chicken breast, and do a plate of spaghetti and a plate of chicken. I didn't know what greens were, so I kind of forgot my greens. So greens can be really helpful, really supportive. And
that plant-based
nutrient
diet.
dense. If you do the right one, green drinks can be really powerful. If you do what's called blended green drink, which retains the fiber, then you've taken it to a whole nother level. So you can do the presses, the juicing, but I recommend long-term, you got to bring the fiber in there, because this is something that we're missing here in the United States, not enough good fiber. So that's it. It's going to be better nutrition, not eat so much, eat, quality over quantity, be smart about how I train. The only time I got injured was when my ego was like, well, okay, let me see how much I can deadlift. Let me see how much I can actually squat. And when I did, I tore my patella tendon and a anterior cruciate on my left knee, squatting 465. It just wasn't worth it. I did it, but it wasn't worth it. There's ways to train that you can still protect the tendons and ligaments and joints. that you can push your physique to the next level. And so I do like slow burn. I do different things like sprint 8 for the cardio part, so you don't pound on the joints. You can do that on ellipticals. I do different techniques with sauna and dunks and intermittent fast, and then train at the end of that and then recover. So those things are been proven out to really support the body's regeneration and take it to the next level and activate your HGH. Now, one thing that I was reading and researching was that sauna, if you decide to do a sauna an hour in the morning and an hour at night, if you do it consecutively, by the 4th day, you are going to maximize, you're starting to activate your HGH levels. And if you continue that for a period of time, up to 16 times your natural production of HGH. So you can do all these things really naturally to activate and stimulate your own body's production. Anyway,
Love it.
You get me going, Scott, and I'm just gonna take off.
Frank, I love this stuff because
stuff.
there's so much knowledge there, and I want people to contact you, so you can help them with nutrition, you can help them with recovery, you can help them with hydration, you can give them so many insightful tools, but yet you can walk them through these steps to help them be a better version of themselves. Correct?
I do consultations all over the country. So I do all, phone consultations with my patients at this time. And so I've got people in Tennessee. I got a kid in New Jersey. I got some people in Texas and New York and Oklahoma. I mean, so all across the country. And I love working with athletes. I love working with coaches because I want the coaches healthy. You're in good shape. But I see a lot of coaches don't pay attention. They get a little too focused on, the team, the win, the videos, and they don't take care of themselves. And I think as a coach, you want to inspire them mentally, but you also want to inspire them by how you do your life.
Yep. So, lead by example. People are so visual. And if they can see you with an active body in shape, that it's working, we're not going to make them do something that, we wouldn't do ourselves.
And that's exactly what Coach Stoney was all about, man. He was like, you could see that he wouldn't ask anything of you that he personally couldn't do or wouldn't do in a moment's notice.
Love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, wow. Frank Jasper from Vision Quest, the Brian Shute. Look him up. I love our uplifting conversations. I pick up something new every time we speak, and I feel blessed and honored. But I encourage people to, share this content and let's light as many flames and share the light with as many people, because your candle's not going out by lighting another candle. So let's ignite as many candles. Let's empower other people. And I'm going to throw on the shades with my man, Frank. It's Hollywood version, baby. It's the Coach Scott Field Show. You've been coached up with my man, Frank Jasper, a.k.a. Brian Shute from the 85 movie Vision Quest. If you haven't seen it, go get it on Netflix. Go pick it up. Hit YouTube. But, man, get inspired, because Frank will get you right.
All right. Shoot out.
Love it, brother. Appreciate you.